Let me ask you something. If you saw a Neanderthal walking down the street in a suit, would you actually notice? For over a century, the answer you were taught was, obviously, yes, hunched, brutish, barely human. But almost everything about that image came from a single skeleton, and the scientist who studied it made a mistake so basic it changed how an entire species was imagined for 100 years. By the end of this video, you'll understand what ancient humans actually looked like, how they actually lived, and why the picture in your head is almost entirely wrong. Here's where the myth started. In 1908, a nearly complete Neanderthal skeleton was discovered in France, and a French paleontologist reconstructed it for the public. He gave it a hunched spine, a shuffling gait, bent knees, the image that's been copied in textbooks and museums ever since. There was just one problem. Decades later, researchers re-examined that exact skeleton and found the individual had severe arthritis and several degenerative joint conditions. The hunch wasn't Neanderthal anatomy. It was one sick, elderly individual, and an entire species got permanently typecast off a single bad diagnosis. That's suspect number one. But it's only the beginning, because once researchers corrected that mistake, they found something that should genuinely unsettle how you think about human history. There are 3 specific things science got wrong about ancient humans, and the third one is the part that makes the first 2 feel like a warm-up. The first correction is about the body itself. When researchers reconstructed Neanderthal anatomy properly, accounting for the arthritis and using multiple healthy specimens instead of one damaged one, the result wasn't hunched or ape-like at all. Neanderthals stood upright, just as straight as modern humans. They were shorter on average, but significantly more muscular, with a barrel-shaped ribcage built for enormous lung capacity. Their brains, when measured accurately, were actually slightly larger than the average modern human brain. Not smaller, larger. The image of the dim-witted caveman wasn't just exaggerated. On the specific metric of raw brain size, it was backwards. The second correction is about intelligence and behavior, and this is where it gets genuinely strange. For decades, tool use was considered the dividing line, the thing that made humans special and separated us from every other species. Then researchers found deliberately buried Neanderthal remains, bodies placed in intentional positions, sometimes surrounded by pollen from flowering plants, suggesting some form of ritual or mourning behavior. They found evidence of cave art in Spain, dated to a period before modern humans are believed to have arrived in that region, meaning Neanderthals may have been painting on cave walls before we were. They crafted advanced tools, used fire deliberately, and there's evidence they treated wounds with what appear to be early medicinal plants. This wasn't a lesser version of humanity stumbling through existence. This was a parallel, sophisticated way of being human that simply looked different from ours. Now here's the third force, the one that makes the first 2 feel like a warm-up, because it's not about a specific species at all. It's about what ancient human actually means, and it's stranger than almost anyone realizes. For most of the 20th century, ancient human history was taught as a straight line, one species evolving cleanly into the next, ending in us. Genetic sequencing completed in the last 2 decades destroyed that picture entirely. Modern humans didn't simply replace Neanderthals. We interbred with them. Most people with European or Asian ancestry carry somewhere between 1% and 4% Neanderthal DNA today, sitting quietly in their genome right now, influencing things like immune response and even certain aspects of skin and hair traits. And Neanderthals weren't the only ones. A separate, even more mysterious group called the Denisovans, known mostly from a handful of bone fragments in a Siberian cave, also interbred with early humans, and their DNA shows up prominently in populations across parts of Asia and Oceania today. Here's the part that connects everything back to that single misdiagnosed skeleton from 1908. The story we were told wasn't just simplified. It was actively wrong in a way that erased genuine complexity. Multiple human species existing at the same time, sometimes for tens of thousands of years, sometimes interacting, sometimes interbreeding, sometimes competing for the same resources in the same landscapes. The clean line from primitive ancestor to modern human never existed. What actually existed was closer to several parallel branches, overlapping, colliding, and eventually merging into the genetic mixture that's sitting inside billions of people alive today. So knowing all three of these corrections, the misdiagnosed posture, the sophisticated behavior, and the interbreeding that rewrote the entire family tree, what does ancient human life actually look like once you strip away the myth? Communities that buried their dead with apparent care, groups that treated injuries, and sometimes survived injuries so severe that modern trauma doctors are surprised the individuals lived at all, meaning someone had to be caring for them for months, maybe years, while they recovered. Tool-making traditions passed down and refined across generations, and physically, bodies built dense, strong, and resilient enough to survive Ice Age winters that would kill most modern humans within days without the exact right technology. This isn't speculation dressed up as fact. It's what the corrected evidence actually shows once researchers stopped building conclusions off a single arthritic skeleton and started looking at the full genetic and archaeological picture available today. So go back to the question at the start of this video. Would you actually notice a Neanderthal in a suit walking past you based on the corrected anatomy? Upright posture, proportionate build, larger brain case? Probably not. At least not immediately. The image in your head, hunched, dim, barely surviving, was never really about them. It was about one damaged skeleton and 100 years of textbooks that never bothered to update the illustration. You now know something most people never learn even after a full education, that the story of ancient humans wasn't a straight line of improvement leading to us. It was several sophisticated, parallel versions of humanity, and a piece of nearly all of them is still alive today, inside you. If this changed how you picture human history, hit subscribe, because next week's video covers the ancient civilization that built structures we still can't fully explain, using tools that, on paper, shouldn't have been capable of it.